Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the news and rumors on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and their games. I'm Damon Hatfield. This week I'm joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast Unlocked.
Good to see you, Damon.
You as well. And Max Scoville, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast Beyond.
Howdy.
And this week we're taking a survey of a bunch of games that are missing in action. These are games that have been announced for these platforms, but they haven't been canceled, but they don't have a release date. We don't know when they're coming, and many of these games we haven't gotten an update in a long time. So there's a lot to get into. Let's jump right into it. Let's begin with an Xbox portion. There are several Xbox games that we'd say they're missing in action, and we can begin with one that actually has a very good reason, and that would be S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. That was revealed back at E3 2021, and then it's been heavily impacted by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In June of this year, we got an update saying that S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 will miss the June online conferences, preferring to make important announcements in the upcoming months. So, Ryan, what's your feeling about when we might finally get to play S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2? I don't think there's any sort of an end to the Russia and Ukraine conflict in sight.
Well, sadly, that's all too true. But in terms of when we're going to play this game, first of all, I mean, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it on behalf of all of us, is that it doesn't matter when this game comes out. We want this development team and their families to be safe.
Yes.
We know that they've already lost one development team member, one colleague who took up arms to defend his country and was killed in action last year. So, no one's going to roll their eyes at another delay or however long it takes for S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. But to try and answer the question, I think it's pretty fair to rule out 2023 at this point, even though that was the last thing they told us. We had a trailer that hit the very end of December. They snuck a trailer out at the very end of last year, a new gameplay trailer that just said 2023 on it. Given that we're at the end of July here, heading into August, I don't think there's any real reasonable way, just knowing what we know about how marketing works for AAA games, they're probably not going to ship that this year. Although I guess you could say Call of Duty is definitely coming out this year and still doesn't have a release date or is even technically announced. But I genuinely don't think, or at least I would be surprised if S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 snuck out this year. If it did, it'd be great. I mean, it'd be another exclusive for Microsoft this fall alongside, of course, Starfield and Forza Motorsport. But I think realistically, this is going to bump into next year. We literally have no idea of what challenges this team has been up against on a human level. Forget about a professional trying to develop a video game level. So seems like it's going to slip into 2024. But that announcement that you read from them, Damon, saying that they weren't going to be at the showcase, hopefully it means that they'll turn up at Gamescom. I mean, Gamescom, of course, is on their side of the world, whereas not E3 is over here in the US, is pretty far from home. So my hope is that maybe in a month from now at Gamescom, we will see and hear something from S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, maybe even a release date as to what that is. I mean, it'd be impossible to predict when in 2024, but it does seem like next year is pretty likely now.
There's another Xbox console exclusive that's been heavily impacted by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and that's Replaced.
Yeah.
That one, and if anyone doesn't remember, this is the very, very cool pixel art looking sort of cinematic platformer game revealed at E3 2021. But we got another trailer last December as part of the Game Awards, so it hasn't been that long, but there's been, again, radio silence since then, and we still don't have a release date for that. Its Steam listing says it's coming soon. I don't know, so that's a smaller game, smaller in scope, right? Any chance that could squeeze out this year?
See, I mean, you're right that maybe that one could have a shorter ramp between a release date and maybe it could hit this year. But everything I just said about S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 unfortunately applies to the team at Replaced as well. So we wish them the best, and yeah, we know we have less visibility into what's going on with Replaced just because we've heard less from that team and from the game over the course of different showcases, different events. So it's kind of harder to pin down exactly how far along Replaced is, but again, I would probably place my money on a bet for next year as well for Replaced.
I'm thinking that also, you know, the other factor is that Replaced is just from the looks of things a smaller team. You know, it's an indie game. It's you know, not to discount the aesthetic or anything, but like, you know, you look at something like S.T.A.L.K.E.R, which is, you know, capital AAA, quadruple A, whatever you want to call it. That's a big team working on it. A lot of moving parts. Indie games, same deal. And I feel like we often see this. Another one on this, I don't know if it's on this list. It's what is it? Little Devil Inside. It got announced for PlayStation a million years ago, and you know, again, it's a small team working on it, and I think there's a lot of less about like a marketing push and more just not wanting to Boy Who Cries Wolf it and be like, we're going to be out now. We're not really sure when we're going to be out, but you know, it's kind of, you know, wait until you have a clearer, you know, deadline in sight, and then reveal it.
Well, there's an Xbox exclusive that is not being made by a small team, and this one really hurts for me. This one's Perfect Dark. That one was revealed in December of 2020. Then in September of 2020, it was revealed that the initiative, its developer, was partnering with Crystal Dynamics, which I don't think is a very good sign. And then March of 2022, there are reports of numerous staff departures. And then June, this summer, we've learned that that game is still years away. It's been years since it was announced, and it is still years away. I don't know, Ryan. I don't know if I feel confident we're ever going to play this game.
Well, I do, only because I would encourage everybody to go read our ace reporter Rebecca Valentine's really good, very lengthy, in-depth report after she spoke to many, many sources, both current and former, on that Perfect Dark development team. It concludes by saying, after, again, she spoke with so many different sources, that it sounds like they are now on the right track. So while you're right, Daemon, I mean, it's probably not reasonable to expect to be playing Perfect Dark anytime in the next couple of years. It's going to be seemingly now more of a back half of the Series X generation kind of release, but I am genuinely confident that we are going to see that game, and that it does seem to have found its vision, found its voice, and I'm with you. I mean, I can't wait to see what that is. If it's first person, we know it's going to be like a, you know, spy espionage kind of stealth game, and I love stealth games, and I would love to see Perfect Dark come back in a big, awesome way.
Yeah, I love the original. I think it's actually still quite playable today. There's a couple more Xbox exclusives. State of Decay 3 is a really strange one. It was announced in July of 2020. Nothing since then. Literally no updates, except for that announcement trailer.
Yeah, that 2020 showcase that Microsoft did, again, leading up, if you just remember back to that moment in time, and they were trying to get everybody excited for the Xbox Series X after coming off of, you know, not a good generation, the Xbox One generation. And that was one where Microsoft basically had to show all their cards at that showcase. They had to tell everybody, no, look, we do have games coming. Look, here's a bunch of them. And I'm sure they knew they were announcing things way, way, way before we would ever get to play them. And sadly, State of Decay 3 is one of those where they announced it pretty early. There have been reports, I won't call them, you know, confirmed, but there have been reports over the last year or so that game and that team has had some development turbulence as well. So I'm such a big fan of this series. The first one I was a big champion of when that Undead Labs team came out of nowhere. Like, that was technically, Damon, you'll remember, because you're like me, a big fan of the Xbox Live Arcade program. May it rest in peace, but hopefully someday rise from the ashes like a phoenix. But the original was a Live Arcade release, one of the final Xbox Live Arcade games to ever come out. And then the second game was just unfortunately plagued by a lot of the same technical difficulties and sort of lack of polish that the original was forgiven for, being a smaller kind of digital download game. So now, in fairness, Undead Labs has put a ton of work in, and State of Decay 2 is in awesome shape now. But yeah, State of Decay 3, whenever it does come around, my hope is that it is the full, like, AAA, fully realized, super polished version of what State of Decay has always been capable of being. So, but yeah, who knows when we're going to play that game.
Yeah. And then speaking of who knows, you know, Rare is very busy with Sea of Thieves, of course, but back in 2019, it revealed Everwild, and which is, you know, this other sort of adventure fantasy game. But I think what's noticeable is when I was doing my research for this, there is no clear description of what Everwild is supposed to be, like what kind of a game it is or how it plays. In July of 2020, there was a cinematic trailer, and then in June of 2021, there were reports that it had been rebooted, and then that's it. No more information on Everwild.
Yeah, all we could really, at least what I gathered from that initial trailer, that concept trailer, was that it was taking this sort of Sea of Thieves template, like a, small group co-op in a shared world, and applying it to this unique fantasy setting. So it kind of seemed like it was going to be similar in at least kind of structure to Sea of Thieves, but that's really all we could get out of it. And as you said, Daemon, it's clearly however true or not true those reports of it really getting kind of rebooted, restarted are, it's been out of the limelight, so we haven't seen anything from it in so long that clearly something about it is changing and evolving and needs more time. So the good news is Sea of Thieves is awesome. The new Monkey Island Tall Tale is like literally made for me. So it made me that was my biggest pleasant surprise. Like I actually had a confused reaction, like, what? Like, this is a real thing? So Sea of Thieves is awesome, and it's come a long way since it came out. And hopefully Rare can figure out exactly what they want Everwild to be, and we'll see when we get to play it.
I get this one mixed up with...
Max talk now? Because are there any PlayStation games that have been in line? I feel like it's all Xbox.
No, we were just going to do that in just a moment. But Max, what were you going to...
I was going to say, I get Everwild. You can't really fault me for this. I get that mixed up with Wild, regular Wild, which was the...
that's the Ubisoft game. Which we will talk about in just a moment. But I want to do there's a couple superhero games. So Max, there's Wolverine from Insomniac. And of course, Insomniac is about to deliver Spider-Man 2. But Wolverine was, announced back in September of 2021, almost 2 years ago, and there's been nothing since. Would you expect sort of like once Spider-Man 2 is out the door, we might get an update on Wolverine?
Since that one big E3 a few years back where I feel like they showed their entire hand for the tail end of the PS4 lifecycle, they've been better about keeping things kind of close to the chest and not having us too excited for too long about stuff, but that also makes it difficult to produce a weekly PlayStation show about all the stuff they're not announcing. I would love to see some Wolverine stuff in action. I am extremely excited for this game. Huge X-Men fan. I love Spider-Man, but also I think I like Wolverine better, so just on a personal level, stoked for this. But yeah, I mean, I also don't. I completely understand their reasoning. Like, they don't want to detract from from the hype around Spider-Man 2. So it is a little weird that they would announce it this far in advance. Maybe that's for the sake of trying to staff up and get it on people's radar and just sort of stake their claim to like that. We're making a Wolverine game, not to be confused with any other ones coming along, if that is even a possibility. Yeah, I'm hoping that that's the big thing that Sony is showcasing next year.
And then there's also the Wonder Woman game, which was revealed in December at the Game Awards 2021. There's been nothing on that ever since. We know it's being developed by, it's Monolith. That's right. The Shadow of War team.
I feel like since this got announced, a lot of stuff has happened over at WB. Like a lot of stuff. To the point that I will kind of be amazed if this game ever comes out. Initially out the gate, I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, just do Shadow of Mordor with Wonder Woman. Whatever that means. Like, that seems simple enough. Just just reskin it. I don't even care. Just make it. Just make the game. And clearly, it's gotten kind of tangled up in development hell. And I can't help but imagine that the reaction to Wonder Woman 84 was probably not doing it any favors.
Right.
And then I mean, it's the state of kind of DC stuff in general has been kind of all over the place lately. And we heard that James Gunn is supposedly going to try to right the ship on the movies front, and he mentioned wanting to have games that kind of coincide with the mainline, DCU films. And I really hope that the situation isn't like, oh, what if we went and made Wonder Woman part of that? Because that just seems like a whole extra monkey wrench to throw at an already very, very tangled up situation. But the other thing that's weird that's happened in this is that the studio head for Monolith during the two Mordor games has gone over to work on a Black Panther game. So you're kind of wondering, like, it's that ship of Theseus approach to game development where, you say, oh yeah, the Shadow of Mordor team is working on a Wonder Woman game, but it's like, how many of those people have since moved on? Because it's been a minute.
And so begins the Ubisoft portion of our program, which is lengthy. Ubisoft is perhaps most notoriously known for announcing games that just never ever come out. There is, for one, the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake. It was announced in September of 2020 and it had a January 2021 release date. And it was available to pre-order for a long time. And then in December 2020, it was delayed to March 2021. In February 2021, it was delayed again, this time indefinitely. In May of 2022, Ubisoft announced it was switching developers entirely. In June of 2022, Ubisoft took down pre-orders. It had been available to pre-order this whole time, and then moved the release back to 2023. And then in May of 2023, the Sands of Time remake was rebooted again and is now in its conception phase. It's merely a conception phase. This is another one I'm not convinced we'll ever play. Ryan, how about you?
I mean, it's hard to argue with you on that. It's tough to be optimistic. But the fact that they did announce a developer change, I believe it went back to Ubisoft Montreal, the original team that developed it, if I remember correctly. The optimism I would hang on to is that the Montreal team tried to pick up the pieces on this and probably just went, it's just better to start over. And so that's my thinking, is that they've probably completely started from scratch, and that it'll be a while, but that this will happen. But I really hope it does, because I know both you guys remember this game. It was so good at the time, and I really think it will hold up well in a remake form. You know, this new, kind of 2.5D Prince of Persia game that got announced at the Ubisoft Forward looks super cool, but it's clearly not of the same scope as Sands of Time is. So yeah, it's what will come out first? Sands of Time remake, Splinter Cell remake, or Beyond Good and Evil 2? Place your bets.
Well, speaking of Beyond Good and Evil 2, that one might have had the longest development cycle that we know of. In 2008, Michel Ancel said Beyond Good and Evil 2 was in pre-production. It had been in pre-production for a year, but wasn't yet greenlit. It was officially announced at E3 in 2016. Michel Ancel left Ubisoft in 2020.
He retired, right?
Yeah, he's not even there anymore. In July of 2021, Ubisoft said development was progressing well. In February of 2022, Bloomberg reported that it was still in pre-production. In August of 2022, it got a new lead writer, and then very sadly, just this month, the creative director at the studio suddenly passed away. So I mean, like, Beyond Good and Evil 2, I mean, I hate to say it, this game does not deserve a 15+ year development cycle. The original game wasn't a commercial success. How can the sequel, if it comes out, possibly recoup all the money that's been put into development?
Does this? Max, go ahead. I was going to say
this again. Yeah, it's this bizarre sort of, like, the first one. People loved it. It was sort of a cult thing, but yeah, it didn't, blow everyone away, and it didn't. People, I feel like the general public wasn't really clamoring for a sequel, and we're approaching that kind of timeline. This is the wrong comparison to make, but Avatar, where, like, it's been so long since the first one came out that most people who are the target audience for this thing probably weren't really even aware of things that were coming out when the first one. So it's like, at this point, they might as well call it a reboot, if it's even going to happen in that sense. They showed off a really impressive, I don't know if you'd call it gameplay. It was some kind of a technical demo. Right?
Yeah.
And the scope of it looks completely staggering. Like, it looked kind of like Starfield grade, in terms of just like, oh, you just get in your spaceship and fly off, and your best friend is a pig or a monkey or whatever. And they announced this whole ambitious thing to team up with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's crowdsourcing music, graffiti.
Yeah.
It just feels like a lot of ideas floating around. Some of which were spaceship shaped, but yeah, I mean, when the person responsible for the original one sort of bounces and goes to do something else, and then sort of meanders back, and then this is like textbook development hell. So I don't think this will ever come out.
Does this now officially have Duke Nukem Forever beat in terms of,
I believe, it
longest
does.
Actual ongoing development?
I believe it does. Yes.
I did not think Duke Nukem Forever would ever be topped.
Yeah.
Boy.
Well, speaking of development hell, there's also Skull and Bones, which began development in 2013 as an Assassin's Creed Black Flag expansion. It was officially revealed as its own thing at E3 2017 with a 2018 release window. It was delayed and delayed and delayed. In July of 2022 last year. It got a November 8th release date, so it was supposed to be out 10 months ago. But then they delayed it to March of 2023. And then in January this year, they delayed it indefinitely once again. Although in June, it got a closed beta reveal trailer. So I don't know. With this one, this is supposed to be a $70 game. I think what they should do is just release it in some sort of an early access state as a free-to-play game and just charge for pirate cosmetics. At this point, I don't know how it could be a success any other way. How about you guys?
Well, you know what they say, one man's sunken cost is another man's buried treasure, I guess. Yeah, this was the I feel like knee-jerk reaction to the combat in Black Flag being cool, and they were like, this needs to be its own game, and it's just at this point, I do not know who's excited for this game, let alone optimistic for this game. You know, in the time since it was announced, Sea of Thieves has since launched on rocky waves, and then since kind of smooth things out and become like it's got its own community. Like if you want to play a pirate game, you go play Sea of Thieves. Like it's already there. So like what is this bringing to the table? And it's after this long, I think you're spot on, Daemon. And clearly they want it to be a sort of games as a service shaped thing. I feel like the description I heard a few years ago, whenever somebody actually played a version of it, is that it's For Honor with boats, which, you know, For Honor found its sort of niche audience. Is the naval version out there somewhere? Maybe.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when there was a real conversation at IGN and in the gaming community of, oh, which one's going to come out first, Sea of Thieves or Skull and Bones? And yeah, Sea of Thieves has been out for 5 years now and counting.
And doing well.
And doing well.
And then, Max, you had mentioned Wild. A lot of people might not even remember this game. This was announced in 2014 as a PlayStation 4 exclusive. It's also it's supposed to be from Michel Ancel. It was described as an open world game with an enormous universe, dynamic weather, and the ability to play as any creature you wish. But since like that reveal trailer, we got there was like nothing. 4 concept art images were uploaded to its official website in 2020, but now the official website is offline. So this game has never officially been delayed or canceled. But again, Michel Ancel has left Ubisoft, so
I believe he's a zookeeper now. Like I think he has his own private animal sanctuary.
I know this wasn't a Ubisoft game.
No,
it was some other studio that he was.
His studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that doesn't change the fact that he's not making games anymore. So
yeah, that one I don't think will ever come out. And then Max, there's a couple Star Wars games. You alluded to this earlier. The Knights of the Old Republic remake was revealed at the same September State of Play as Wolverine. It's apparently still in development as of May of this year. It was at Aspire, although I think Saber has been brought on to help with it. There's no official website.
Take it over, I think.
Just take it over completely.
I think.
There's not even an official website for this game. So I don't know. Max, are you confident this will ever see the light of day?
Extremely skeptical. Both this and Prince of Persia, I think 2 things happened. The standard for what a remake went up quite a few bars, because there was a stretch there where it was, people were pretty content with just like, bump the frame rate up, redo some textures, add some lighting effects. Like you look at the sort of the leap between, 2013 Last of Us and then the PS4 version. And it's a noticeable upgrade, but it's also not a huge reinvention. And then you look at something like the Dead Space remake or Resident Evil 4, and people want something more. They don't just want like a repaint. Again, you're competing with nostalgia, which is a pretty brutal thing to try to keep up with, especially with something like KOTOR. And I mean, looking at things like Dead Space and RE4, like those are big ambitious games, but they're also fairly linear. And they're not massive sprawling Star Wars RPGs. Like they're not huge universes to mess around with. Yeah. So a lot of moving parts there.
Ryan, I know you're a fan of KOTOR, the original.
It's still my favorite role-playing game of all time. I adore that game. But yeah, to remake it for modern players and modern systems, you can't do turn-based combat anymore. You can't do the worlds have to be way more detailed and fleshed out because you visit a number of planets in KOTOR. I mean, the story could be exactly the same because the story is still brilliant, but the actual universe, building that universe will not be easy. And at the time, a lot of us were, I think, respectfully skeptical that S.T.A.L.K.E.R could do it, because they had never taken on anything close to a scope like that before. S.T.A.L.K.E.R had been known for doing, and I guess I do say this somewhat derisively, file save as ports of things, where they would just take old console and PC games and just put them out on modern platforms with very few, if any, upgrades. And so, yeah, for them to now, word was that they had hired a lot of or at least some of the original development team that had worked on at BioWare back in the day. But yeah, I mean, even Saber, like, I'm not convinced Saber, or at least I'm not sure Saber's done anything at this caliber, at this scale either. So
yeah,
this was and if it ever does come out, then Xbox fans are out of luck anyway, because it was announced as a PS5 exclusive. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I only want this game to come out if it's going to be amazing. If it's going to be anything less than that, it's just like, let's just kill this thing and hang on to our memories of the original.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like, not everything scales. Like, to take if they did a 1-to-1 recreation of what the original game was, and it's all gorgeous in 4K, there would still be systems that feel kind of clunky and parts that feel sort of empty. And your memory of how good a game is when you played it 15 years ago or whatever is that's a hard thing to remake or to remaster. And yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, off the top of my head, a studio that could tackle this. And ironically, I feel like Obsidian is the first to come to mind, because they did KOTOR 2, and unfortunately this is a PS5 exclusive, so that's probably not ever going to happen.
I guess I should point out here real quick, too, just because, Max, you made me think about it, because I reviewed KOTOR for OXM, that's how long ago it was. We just, like, days ago, celebrated the 20th anniversary of Knights of the Old Republic, because it came out as an Xbox exclusive in July of 2003. I'll have to look up the exact date while one of you is talking, but yeah, anyway, 20 years, and that's, maybe they were originally aiming to try and get the remake out in time for this anniversary, but we'll see if it ever happens.
Yeah. The other Star Wars game is Star Wars Eclipse from Quantic Dream, announced at December 2021, the Game Awards. There have been no, like, updates on the game since then, no release window, although IGN has talked to, key members at Quantic Dream about the game since then. I don't think this game is, like, vaporware or canceled. It's just, it has been quiet ever since it was released. Max, how are you feeling about Star Wars Eclipse?
I think whenever this game does come out, it's going to be unrecognizable compared to what they showed off. Like that reveal trailer is very cool, very ambitious, but also just it kind of looks like they just have a bunch of recognizable stuff flying around, and then some new, spicy visuals in there too. But yeah, it's Quantic Dream games are extremely polished, ambitious, adventure games. And I can't help but feel like the narrative itch is scratched in Star Wars on the the TV and movie front, and when people want games, they get more action. There's more of like a sort of power fantasy that goes with it, and for that we've got Jedi Survivor and Outlaws, things like that. Yeah, I don't know. This one feels far away. It feels like it's very kind of a quantic dream.
There's a couple other odds and ends to pick up. There's Pragmata from Capcom, which it's a little confusing. It's described as an all-new action-adventure title that depicts a near-future dystopian world on the moon through a deeply profound story and setting. That was revealed in June 2020 with a 2022 release window. Then it was delayed to 2023. And then just this June, Capcom put a little message in its sort of not E3 presentation that it is now delayed indefinitely, which is kind of a strange thing to say, because I don't know, there's a lot of people out there clamoring for Pragmata, like, I want to play Pragmata. It's a completely unknown quantity. Who knows what'll ever happen with that game.
This one, even at its announcement, gave me big, what was it called, Deep Down?
Death Stranding?
Well, Death Stranding,
Deep Down is
obviously.
also that Capcom vaporware.
Yep, that was one they announced. Was that the PS4 reveal?
I think so, yeah.
Launch, something like that, which had knights in the sewer, something along those lines, and then, yeah, it just disappeared. But the fact that they showed a trailer for it, be it for a ambiguous release date or not, is, I guess, promising. But again, it's sort of like who's keeping track? Like, this is it's an unknown quantity. It sort of looks like a weird heavy metal cover of Death Stranding.
Then there's one game that people definitely are clamoring for is Hollow Knight Silksong. I'm sure we'll get to play that eventually, but that was revealed in February of 2019, and we played it at E3 that year and had very positive impressions. But then there was like no updates since then and no release date. It was sort of re-revealed in June of 2022, and then in May of this year, they said it was delayed into late 2023. So hopefully that'll still make it out this year. And then there's In the Valley of Gods from Firewatch developer Campo Santo, announced at the Game Awards 2017, but then Campo Santo was acquired by Valve in 2018. And then did they assist on Half-Life Alyx, Ryan?
Oh yeah, Sean Vanneman, one of the key developers, one of the kind of the leads there. He had a huge hand in writing Half-Life Alyx, and particularly the end of that game, which is so good. Oh my god, why again? Half-Life Alyx, PSVR 2. It's literally gathering dust behind me back there. Please, somebody do it. But yeah, that Campo Santo is a very small team. I don't know their exact number, but I want to say give or take a dozen people. And so I'm pretty sure most, if not all of them, got pulled into Half-Life Alyx. And the thing with Valve is, you honestly, you don't know. We have no idea what they're doing at any given time. Like, they could be making Half-Life 3 right now. They could be making In the Valley of Gods, but they could be working on no video game. They might be working on some, you know, I don't know, re-architecting Steam, or Valve is such a unique place where there's nothing conventional about how they operate. A lot's been written about how Valve is structured, and people just kind of rope other people into doing projects that they're interested in. So who knows? I can't say I'm optimistic that we will ever see this Campo Santo game. Although the fact that I do know for a fact that most, if not all of them, were integral in making Half-Life Alyx, which is, for me, Half-Life Alyx is I think the best game of the last 5+ years. So I will, if this In the Valley of Gods never happens, I'm grateful we got Alyx.
It's interestingly, on Steam, which is owned by Valve, In the Valley of Gods has a 2029 release window. I don't know if that's like a little joke from them or something, or they know something that we don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that Valve has like a sort of unusual, means of productions, working in mysterious ways and all that. But I wish we got more little things to pop up here and there, like Portal, Orange Box, that kind of thing, where it's like maybe this isn't, it's not a Half-Life 2, it's not like a Counter-Strike, but like something. Yeah. It would be really cool if Valve just popped up, hey, we got a new game coming out. It's also coming out to consoles. It's called In the Valley of Gods. Here it is. Check it out. And people are like, wow, look at that, a game. Because they don't need to make games. But what if they did?
They had that card game Artifact.
Yeah, I mean, what's a little frustrating as a gamer is the last time I was at Valve, which was before Alyx came out to do our IGN First exclusive coverage, they talked about how, like with Half-Life 2, they tried to develop the source engine alongside the game, and that took forever, and they didn't want to do it that way. So with Alyx, they had developed Source 2 first, and then made the game. So Valve is sitting on a really nice, perfectly good game engine to build cool things off of. And so far, Alyx is the only thing we've gotten. So hopefully they're working on something that they'll surprise us with sooner rather than later. And lastly, I wanted to mention Metroid Prime 4, only because if and when this game ever does come out, it'll be on Nintendo's next-gen hardware, I'm sure. When was this announced? 2017, or was it even earlier than that? Does anyone remember? It has been too long for me to pinpoint that. And it's only a logo, as far as we know. I think in 2019 we got some news that the studio was hiring like artists to work on it, but there's just been no updates on Metroid. 2017, Daemon, 2017, yes sir. So 6 years now. I don't know. They've had successes with Metroid recently, with the Metroid Prime remaster, and then Metroid Dread was also very good. So that's promising. I mean, yeah. For a second there, it was the last Metroid game prior to the 4 announcement was that like 3DS volleyball Federation game. Force. Yeah, say. Yeah. Which is not the not the fan favorite Metroid outing. Yeah. Well, there you have it. Those are 17 missing in action
PS5, Xbox, and Nintendo games. Lots out there just floating in the ether that we don't know what's going on with them. We got the results from the last episode that we did, the poll. We asked, what Activision Blizzard game would you most like Xbox to resurrect, as it looks more and more likely that Microsoft will be able to close its deal to acquire Activision Blizzard. The winning result was with almost 35% of the vote was StarCraft. A lot of you out there want a new StarCraft game. That was followed by Guitar Hero. Ryan, I don't know. Would you welcome a new Guitar Hero at this point?
Heck yeah, I would.
Okay.
I mean, I mean, you've got Guitar Hero that's about to be owned by $1 trillion corporation, and you've got Harmonix, makers of Rock Band, and so the Rock Band IP as well as the developer, owned by Epic, who has they just print money on a constant basis through Fortnite. Yeah. So financially, there's no reason why both of them could not come back, or we get some new instruments made. Because if you want to play those games, Daemon, the software exists, but the hardware doesn't. Yeah. You can't get instruments anymore. You have to go to eBay where things cost an arm and a leg. Yeah. So I would love to see both of them brought back as, I mean, in this day and age, they should just be free-to-play games where you download a base game with maybe a small pack of songs, and then just individually download every song you want. I mean, to Harmonix's credit, they're still putting out Rock Band DLC on a regular basis, which I could not applaud them more for. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, let's dip into the war chests of these multi-bajillion-dollar companies, get some new instruments made, and bring both Guitar Hero and Rock Band back.
Yeah, it could happen. A poll for you to vote on for next episode. What missing in action game are you most looking forward to? Wolverine, Wonder Woman, Perfect Dark. Make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live, and we'll share the results with you next episode. And that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you to both Max and Ryan. Thank you to Mo Ryan working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Daemon. We'll be back next week with more PlayStation 5, Xbox, and Next Gen Console news. We'll see you then.